the first of the games released in the new millennium, and the final release on the original PlayStation. Final Fantasy IX has since taken its place as a classic in the annals of gaming history. Its whimsical world and cheerful charm has delighted newcomers to the franchise and long-term fans alike, with many clamouring for a rumoured remake or animated series, neither of which have been officially announced by Square Enix. Gossip aside, there's really no excuse not to talk about how great this game is. A love letter to earlier titles of the series, with homages aplenty and its own unique identity. There's lots to delight in. With that said, I'm Jack from EXP Required, and I'd like to share the love with 7 reasons why Final Fantasy IX is great. Beware of spoilers ahead. The PlayStation's hardware limitations are no secret, with a whopping 2MB of RAM available for games to take advantage of, and take advantage they did. Many games releasing around the same time had single levels to load in at a time, or a graphical asset limiting render distance, and FF9 managed to use both styles to its advantage, with still images serving as backgrounds within towns, and a wider world gated to prevent skipping ahead in the story. Literally gated. The 4 great kingdoms of the Mist Continent are sealed off from one another by geological formations and man-made gateways both, and though you can visit some of these places ahead of time, they'll be impassable until much later. Roughly a third of the game will be spent on one side of the South Gate, during which time the party splits up and finds themselves on opposite sides of a seemingly sprawling landmass, which in real game terms is only a matter of a few polygons away. This is to say nothing of the heavy mist that blankets this early area of the game. All of this comes together to paint a picture of a vast and vibrant world that only opens up more the further you explore, and wows you when you realise just how small the first area was compared to the rest of the world. A beautiful parallel to the kingdoms themselves, with their many paths to explore and NPCs to talk to initially seeming so big, and the international conflict that engulfs them later seeming so small. The planet Gaia might not be overwhelming to modern gamers, but as a child of the year 2000, getting onto the world map and beginning this journey proper was a dream come true. If you've ever hunted for Easter eggs, you already know the joy of finding hidden treasures around the house, unless they melt behind the fireplace, of course. Forget the cute little chicks with their beady eyes and habit of getting squashed sideways. We've got a different yellowbird on the cards today. Chocobo Hot and Cold is both a minigame and side quest that's pretty simple on the surface. Pay Mean the Moogle a small fee to dig up treasure in Chocobo forests, and keep what you find. Your Chocobo helps you figure out whether you're hot or cold by alternating its cry the closer or further away from treasure you are. Combined with the time limit, it can lead to some pretty frantic searching. The trinkets you dig up are for the most part fairly run-of-the-mill items or occasional sums of gil. I knew Meme wasn't using my fee responsibly, but best of all are the Chocographs, ancient treasure maps that lead you all over the world to dig for actual treasure. Forget potions and Phoenix Downs, your Chocobo can lead you to rare cards, armor, and even 3 ultimate weapons. The more you dig, the better your Chocobo gets at it. Leveling up has him change colour, allowing access to spots off the beaten track, and eventually leading you to Chocobo's Paradise and the mysterious Chocobo Air Garden, which doubles as the conclusion to another of FF9's side quests. Ignore means warning at your peril. It is of course possible to complete the main game without ever meeting a Chocobo, let alone digging up several tons of dirt with one. But why would you want to? Not only are FF9's Chocobos adorable, but you'll be missing out not only on some great gear, but some brilliant renditions of the Chocobo theme as well. Notice how we said only 3 ultimate weapons can be found with Chocobos. It goes without saying that any ultimate weapon is going to have some challenge behind it, whether that's via side quests or going out of your way to look for otherwise unremarkable items. But Alexandrian Knight Adalbert Steiner takes the cake with his permanently missable Excalibur II. If the original Excalibur wasn't hard enough to obtain via the auction house quest, fear not, there's a higher stakes challenge waiting for you. In order to find this sword, you need to get to this balcony in the final dungeon in under 12 hours. Arrive a minute too late, it won't be there, and you'll have to try again, right from the very beginning. Released long before the advent of true speedrunning communities, this trial is made easier with the speed up function of the remastered edition, but speedrunning aficionados don't have to give in to the fast forward feature. For added difficulty's sakes, why not attempt the run on the original PAL version of the game? The in-game clock runs at 5/6 the speed to account for the region's differing frame rate. It's possible, but the kind of run that'll have you cutting every corner you can. As is so often the way with Ultimate Anythings, the Excalibur II exists solely for bragging rights, with its 3 teachable abilities able to be learned from other items in the game, and though its high strength stat is certainly eye-wateringly brilliant, chances are you'll be dealing out plenty of hurt without it. Shy, clumsy, and endearing to boot, the instantly recognisable Vivi is a favourite in the hearts of many, and it's not hard to see why. Taking his design directly from the original black mages of Final Fantasy I, he's swept up in the conflict of the game entirely by accident, and ends up learning more about himself than he ever thought possible. In a setting where hippos walk the street, and no one bats an eye at main character Zidane's monkey tail, black mages are still considered a peculiarity. And for good reason. A good chunk of the mages you meet will be enemies you have to fight and defeat, dull-like and for the most part silent, with the exception of early game bosses the Black Waltzes. That is until a chance encounter in a forest leads you to a village of black mages, all of whom want nothing to do with the wider world. Scared to the extreme of the outsiders that have found their way to their village, it isn't until Vivi makes his presence known that these sweet souls open up to you, revealing that they've become so much more than puppets to be used for war. Having escaped the all-encompassing thumb of the humans that would use them for their own purposes, they form their own peaceful society filled to the brim with shops, pets, and even a cemetery to honour those that have passed on. Even the main cast suspect that Vivi will stay behind here, having finally found a place to call home. But in possibly one of the most emotional moments of the entire game, he comes running to join you and continue your journey together. Also, one day he can come back here and tell his newfound brothers all about the adventures he's had. I'm not crying, it's just raining inside. When I first saw the words Dark City Treno in the game as a young kid, I assumed it was going to be right out of a Tim Burton movie, a spooky place full of bats, skeletons, and other Halloween goodies. Imagine my surprise when I found it to be a pretty normal city. Full of ornate architecture and endlessly winding pathways, the majority of people you'll meet in the sleepless city will be nobles as snobby as they come. But like any metropolis, there's another side to the decadence, with a slum area filled to the brim with the poor making the best of quite frankly crappy circumstances. On your first visit to Treno, you'll be controlling Princess Garnet, who after only a short period of travelling with the party, has warmed quickly to the common folk. She's quick to note here that the city's not a very nice place, a far cry from the aristocrat we were first introduced to, who balked at the idea of sharing an inn-room with strangers. Treno itself has more to offer than just the standard stores found in any Final Fantasy town. A visit here isn't complete without swinging by the auction house and laughing nervously as you realise these big time players are going to outbid you almost any day of the week. Much easier to swing by Queen Stella's mansion and deliver her collectible coins for some pretty nifty rewards. Just don't make a fuss about all the quacking. All this and more makes Treno something of a hub, and arguably better than equally vibrant Limblom. It's also one of the few main areas still accessible in the endgame once the world is enveloped in mist. And if you want to learn how to summon the fabled Odin, you'll be spending a lot more than time here. With so many moving parts and players, FF9 came up with an innovative way to show what was happening in other parts of the world while you were learning how to be a hero. First introduced by Moogles early in the game, there are a whopping 79 unique cutscenes spread across the game's playtime that breathe a bit more life into an already lively world. These active time events, or ATEs, are for the most part optional and range from wholesome scenes of Garnet learning how to behave like a common girl, to heart-rending sequences of NPCs being terrified of Vivi, to following the absurd adventures of Gorman Queener seeking the tastiest fare to sample, or even following unnamed characters as they go about their everyday lives. While these scenes will only ever show you characters away from the main party, in true RPG fashion, any items you win or lose belong to the whole party and will go right in, or out, of your inventory. If only we could ATE back home on the days we forgot on our phone. Re-released editions of the game on PlayStation, Xbox and Steam come with the unlockable achievement Movie Critic, which requires you to watch all ATE scenes in a single playthrough. Much easier said than done, when so many are dependent on actions taken earlier in the game. Would it really be a complete FF9 list if we didn't mention Alexandria's finest knight? Badass Beatrix, general of the all-female Alexandrian army and ruthless swordswoman, is a recurring enemy and much later ally that you're pitted against in battle 3 times. Not one of these encounters are winnable, even if you're lucky enough to reduce her health to 0, as she'll always end the battle by reducing your party's HP to 1. Scary stuff. The only paladin in the game, her character arc mirrors FF4 Cecil Harvey without the class change. Both follow the orders of their monarch despite their doubts until their actions become too much to bear. Turning to the light has never felt so good, especially when you're given the chance to control Beatrix in combat and are finally able to use some of those killer spells. If it feels like a tease to be able to use her for only a small part of the plot, never fear, Knight Steiner can later learn those same Seiken abilities from some legendary swords, perhaps hinting at his own evolution into a paladin. Sadly for him, he'll never be quite as cool as the good general. We're glad to have Beatrix on our side at least, especially since her initial appearance is less cool and more ice cold. She's not the first character in the series with a disability, and like FF8's fusion before her, never lets her partial sightedness get in the way of kicking ass. So that was our list of 7 great parts of Final Fantasy IX. Did we mention your favourite or forget something? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video around. If you'd like to hear more Final Fantasy discussion, we also have a podcast linked in the description below. Thanks for watching and see you next time.